up on the newscast, Seoul summons the Japanese ambassador to South Korea and slams Tokyo's recent review of a 1993 statement that acknowledges its wartime sexual enslavement of women. In Brazil, Team Korea falls to Algeria 4-2 in World Cup action, a loss that greatly diminishes the squad's chances of making it to the next round. And a runaway army sergeant accused of killing at least 5 of his fellow soldiers is captured alive after a suicide attempt.
Hello and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sean Lim.
Happy Monday, everyone. I am Kang Tiri. Thanks for joining us tonight. We begin with the case of a runaway, a Korean soldier who was captured today after he shot himself in a suicide attempt during a tense 42-hour standoff.
And this is after his shooting spree over the weekend that killed 5 of his comrades. Kim Ji-yeon reports on where the soldier is now and what could have led to this tragedy.
The standoff between the fugitive soldier, identified by his surname Im, and the authorities came to an end on Monday afternoon after 42 hours with an attempted suicide. Authorities say the 22-year-old shot himself in the side with a K2 rifle and has been transported from a military hospital to a private hospital for treatment.
The military collected the K2 rifle and ammunition from the fugitive soldier, who is expected to be referred to the Military Investigative Authority so they can determine a motive and cause for the attack.
Im was on the list of soldiers that needed special attention as he struggled adapting to military life. He was deemed unfit for frontline service in a personality test last year, although he retook the test months later and passed. Im killed 5 of his comrades and injured at least 7 others in a grenade and gun attack on Saturday. He later fled to an area some 10 kilometers from the military base where he opened fire on troops before being cornered by the military. The attack is the latest in a series carried out by Korean soldiers. 8 were killed back in 2005 after a soldier went rogue at his military base, and a similar incident on Gangwon Island in 2011 left 4 dead. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, this story at this point leaves so many questions unanswered. Why did he? He was almost done with his military service, and why did he have to do this at this point?
Right, and of course, more importantly, it does prompt some calls into addressing some of the mental health issues for soldiers and what could actually lead to some of these draftees requiring special observation, because he was reportedly one of them at one point. So, some are saying that, of course, it's a mistake to let somebody with that kind of history have a firearm.
No, and remember back in 2005, we actually had a similar shooting spree, and the government actually installed a new measure to strengthen supervision of these so-called risky soldiers. So I guess one of many questions to be asking at this point is, how properly have we been following up on this? How in earnest have we been following the rules for the safety of our soldiers?
Exactly, right. The accountability issue comes up, and especially in this post-Sewol-ho ferry world, accountability has been on the minds of many, but there may be another complication in the ongoing investigation of the disaster.
That's right. Parts of original video footage that captured the final moments of the April ferry disaster have been erased. The Incheon District Court, which is handling the case, said Monday that it had received 85 minutes of video footage shot from Coast Guard helicopters and a patrol boat, but only with segments missing. The Coast Guard says they were erased due to memory overload. The victims' families, of course, called on the Coast Guard to answer for its lax management of the footage. Now, moving on to the latest hurdle in Korea-Japan relations over Tokyo's stance on its past wartime sexual slavery.
The Korean government summoned the Japanese ambassador to Seoul this afternoon to lodge a formal complaint over Tokyo's moves to backtrack on a landmark acknowledgement of the inhumane crime. Hwang Ji-ae tells us more.
With the relationship between Korea and Japan growing increasingly frosty over historical issues, Seoul summoned the Japanese ambassador on Monday. It came in response to Tokyo's announcement last week of its re-examination into the Kuno statement. Cho Tae-yong, Korea's vice foreign minister, told Japanese envoy Goro Pesho it's a historical fact that women were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II, and the whole world recognizes it.
The more the Abe administration attempts to dismiss the Kono statement, the more its credibility and international reputation will suffer. Japan will have to know that for sure.
The Abe government, while upholding the statement, claimed that Seoul was in close consultation with Japan when the statement was being drawn up. The Kono statement was issued back in 1993 by then Chief Cabinet Secretary Yohei Kono. It acknowledged for the first time the forced sexual enslavement of some 200,000 women. In addition to calling in the Japanese ambassador to complain about the move out of Tokyo, the Korean government plans to register historical records regarding the so-called comfort women with UNESCO and bring up the issue during United Nations meetings. Korea's foreign ministry is known to have tentatively concluded that the Japanese review was trying to diminish the testimonies of sexual slavery victims and the apologetic tone of the Kuno statement. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye's returned from her week-long Central Asia tour that included stops in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan.
And along the way, the Korean president secured deals to further expand economic ties in the region and garnered additional support for her Eurasia and North Korea initiatives.
And for a rundown on this trip, of course, our top office correspondent Choi Yoo-san is joining us in the studio. So Yoo-san, let's talk about first the significance of her trip to this region.
Well, Korea established diplomatic ties with the three countries back in 1992, and this latest trip was a chance for Korea to reaffirm its partnerships in the region and also take the economic ties up a notch in line with President Park's Eurasia initiative. Last fall, the Korean leader proposed linking energy and logistics infrastructure across Eurasia to transform the global economic system and reassure security on the Korean peninsula. Aside from the region's rich resources, and as well as rapid annual growth in the region of between 7% and 13%, and its geographical location, those factors make it an attractive region as a partner for Korea. During President Park's tour, Seoul first sought to speed up a list of previously agreed business projects with the region, which is abundant with natural gas and oil reserves. They include $8 billion worth of gas development and liquefaction projects with Tashkent, thermal plant and petrochemical complex construction with Astana worth $10 billion, and chemical processing and gas desulfurization projects with Ashgabat totaling $5 billion. Seoul and Astana finalized a deal for Korea to operate their joint coal thermal plant for 20 years and for Kazakhstan to purchase generated electricity worth $18 billion. In the first ever trip by a Korean president to Turkmenistan, President Park secured rights to sell nearly $8 billion worth of high-density polyethylene and polypropylene, as well as sulfur produced from the two countries' previously agreed projects. And looking beyond existing cooperation, Seoul signed a deal to build a solar energy testbed in Uzbekistan, which is expected to help Korean businesses win solar plant construction orders in the future. In line with the Eurasia initiative, President Park sought highway and railway projects in the region and discussed expanding cooperation in areas of textiles, ICT, environment, and agriculture. Tashkent, Astana, and Ashgabat all endorsed Seoul's Eurasia initiative, sharing the goals of diversifying their current resources-based economy, learning from Korea's IT and manufacturing experience, and increasing cooperation with Korean small and mid-sized businesses. And here's how the Presidential Economic Secretary summed up last week's presidential tour.
Under the title Eurasia Diplomacy, we believe the latest presidential tour kick-started the President to Eurasia initiative based on a belief in cooperative economic cooperation.
Well, aside from her success in forging more economic ties, the president also secured some involvement for her North Korea initiatives.
Right. All three leaders expressed their support for President Park's trust-building efforts on the peninsula, which include an expansion of humanitarian and cultural exchanges, while at the same time, Seoul maintaining a firm stance against North Korea's provocations. Astana, in particular, reiterated its position of not recognizing North Korea as a nuclear weapon state and pledged to remind Pyongyang about how much its own economy developed through foreign investments after giving up its nuclear arms. In the mid-1990s, Kazakhstan voluntarily handed over some 1,000 former Soviet nuclear warheads. And alongside neighboring Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, the 5 Central Asian countries signed a treaty back in 2006 declaring their region a nuclear weapon-free zone.
In maintaining friendly relations with China and Russia, the 5 countries have attracted foreign capital and elevated their international status as peace-endorsing states.
And on the diplomatic front, Seoul and its 3 Central Asian partners saw the need to systemize their cooperation, throwing support for President Park's proposal to set up a 6-way secretariat. Korea is also seeking more cultural and people-to-people exchanges with the region, especially as there are nearly 300,000 ethnic Koreans residing in the 3 countries combined. And looking ahead, experts say an action plan or roadmap would be essential for bilateral and multilateral step-by-step cooperation with the region. They add Korea should also focus on attracting investments from the region, especially with the Russia, Kazakhstan, and Belarus-led economic union that's set to be launched next year.
All right, Yusun, thank you so much for your report there.
Anytime.
Curry's comments came in response to
your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang Sean Lim and Kang Chae-ri from the heart of Seoul.
News begins now.
Primetime news, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
Innovation seems to be the key word in Korea these days. Now, Korea's largest electronics company is staying true to that spirit. Thomson Reuters, in its State of Innovation report, said Samsung Electronics had the most patent requests last year in the mobile phone, smart media, and semiconductor categories. As for other Korean companies on the list, LG Electronics ranked number 5 in the kitchen appliance category, while Hyundai Motor was in number 4 for patents related to vehicles that run on alternative fuels. The U.S. Food and Drug Association has given the green light to a Korean-made drug for the first time in 11 years. Civextro, an antibiotic made to treat infections of the superbacteria known as MRSA, was developed by Korean pharmaceutical company Dongha ST. It marks the second locally developed drug to get the seal of approval from the U.S. agency. Dongha ST expects to pull in annual sales of about $293 million from licensing royalties and technology support from the U.S. producer and distributor of its drug.
Korea is often regarded as a global leader and role model for e-government, or a digital age approach to public service. With that in mind, the country is inspiring other nations to digitize its public services by playing host to the UN's Public Service Awards ceremony this week. Kwon So-ah tells us more.
Nearly 1,900 participants from 126 countries are in Korea this week to celebrate Public Service Day at this year's UN Public Service Forum, both of which celebrate the value of public service to the community.
I think Korea is the correct place to hold this forum, simply because Korea has got tremendous experience in changing from a very poor country to becoming an industrialized, developed country.
In his keynote speech, Dr. Mahathir praised Korea's public services, especially in the realm of electronic government, which refers to the digital interaction between a government and its citizens. Largely because of its fast developing IT sector, Korea ranked first in the most two recent UN e-government surveys and is now a role model for other countries.
Of course, in Korea, you are ranked top in terms of open government and listening to your citizens and the systems of open data, e-participation. All of those areas are very important, and we are happy that Korean government are doing very well and trying to learn some of these good practices.
A workshop will be held on the second day of the event on Tuesday, one that focuses on innovation and e-governance for sustainable development. The United Nations Public Service Forum is often called the World Cup of public service gatherings, as it is the biggest of its kind. Korea hopes to draw international attention to its services through a successful hosting of the event and extend the so-called Korean wave into the field. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korea is known for its hot and humid summers, and to beat the heat, Koreans of the past would wear clothes made of mochi, a light and airy traditional fabric. And these days, among fashion circles, there's been a resurgence. Our Park Ji-won reports.
69-year-old Bang Oh-yeon has been weaving mochi, or fine ramy fabrics, for almost her entire life. The skill she learned dates back to 1,500 years to the nation's west-central region of Hansan.
It takes great effort to make a fabric out of ramy plants, as it involves many steps. To make a suit, the weaving process itself takes about 10 days.
Mochi cloth weaving starts with the ramy plant, one of the oldest fibers cultivated for fabrics. Ramy first needs to be peeled off and then split to be made into threads. The handmade community process of weaving the fabric made it on UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage List in 2011.
These handmade ramy fabrics are known for being light, breathable, and holding shape easily.
This strong yet airy natural fabrics has inspired modern fashion designers like Seo Young-soo, who recently held a collection composed of pieces made of mochi fabric.
What's great about the ramy fabric is that it gives a beautiful natural silhouette to any design. It goes especially well with dresses, although it's not too feminine. Mochi can go well with any design, but I think it's the best fabric for high-end dresses.
For those who would like to experience the textiles themselves, the annual Hansan Ramy Fabric Cultural Festival is taking place this week in the west-central part of the country. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko has called on world leaders to help deal with the pro-Russian uprising raging across the eastern part of the country.
With more on that, we now turn to Paul Yi at the News Center. Paul, government forces in Ukraine have been engaged in violent clashes with these rebels since April. What's prompted the latest call for help?
Well, despite offering a unilateral ceasefire last week, President Poroshenko faces continued attacks at the hands of insurgents against government forces in eastern Ukraine. According to the foreign ministry, Poroshenko contacted German Chancellor Angela Merkel and other world leaders as Kiev prepares its new peace plan. Moscow insists that the week-long ceasefire should be extended and that it would provide the foundation for dialogue in time. Meanwhile, the number of Ukrainian refugees fleeing to Russia has surpassed 10,000 as they attempt to flee the conflict. On Sunday, the wreckage of a Ukrainian helicopter involved in a military operation against pro-Russian separatists was found in the Kharkiv region, along with the bodies of 3 crew members. However, authorities are still not clear what caused the aircraft to crash. And turning now to the turmoil in Iraq and another decisive blow to the government. Iraqi officials say as of Sunday they lost control of all border crossings that line up with Syria and Jordan, which puts Sunni militants closer to taking over the capital, Baghdad. The insurgents led by the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant have also firmed their grip over the region by taking 4 more strategically important towns, effectively controlling at least 70% of the western province of Anbar. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Baghdad on Monday as part of his tour in the Middle East. Speaking earlier in Egypt on Sunday, Kerry warned that the militants posed a grave threat to regional peace. He also urged Iraq's leaders to put aside their sectarian differences, quickly form a new inclusive government, and unite against the militant threat to avoid an all-out civil war. And finally, health authorities in Saudi Arabia have reportedly developed a new treatment against the deadly outbreak of the MERS virus, which has already claimed the lives of 200 patients. The health ministry said on Sunday that researchers were able to create new antibodies that prevent the MERS coronavirus from attaching to human cells, thus preventing any potential infections. Confirmed cases of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, have now surpassed over 700 in Saudi Arabia, while a handful of cases in Europe and North America. The severe respiratory disease causes cough and fever, which can lead to pneumonia and kidney failure. MERS is considered a deadly cousin of SARS virus, although not as contagious. International experts are still searching for a cure or vaccine for MERS, but are hailing these new antibodies as the next best thing. And that wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Chad. Now, the last of the second group stage matches has come to a close, and it was a disappointing result for South Korea, who were stunned by Algeria's relentless attack. And early on, the Korean defense was shaky. Slimani flicked in the first score, and Halish headed one in 2 minutes later to give Algeria the 2-0 lead. And right before the half, another defensive gaffe put the Algerian side up 3-0. But in the 50th minute, Son Heung-min powered one past the keeper for Korea's first goal, but any chances of a comeback were dashed by Brahimi's running strike. Kujachar added one later, but Korea couldn't come back, giving Algeria an historic 4-2 victory. And moving on to the other matches, earlier Group H action had Belgium taking on Russia in their crucial meeting. Now, the scoreless deadlock of the first half led into a more spirited second half by both teams. Russia pressed hard on the attack, but Belgium took over late, capped off by a Divock Origi goal 2 minutes before the end of regulation. And with the 1-0 win, they advanced to the knockout stage, leaving South Korea, Algeria, and Russia to battle for the final spot. And capping off day 11 was the U.S. taking on Portugal, with the Americans looking to lock down Group G with a win. Now, Portugal led early and held on until the U.S. found an equalizer off Jermaine Jones's foot in the second half. Captain Clint Dempsey added one late to put his side up until a Cristiano Ronaldo cross homed in on Sylvester Varela's head for the score in the very last moment of added time, and it ended in a 2-2 draw. And of course, once again, thousands of Koreans gave up their sleep and took to the streets across the country to catch the Taeguk Warriors take on Algeria. Our Connie Kim was out on the streets of Seoul today for the story.
Disappointment was written across the faces of the tens of thousands of fans who braved the heavy rain to cheer on Korea in their second World Cup group game against Algeria. Nearly 40,000 people gathered in front of COEX Convention Center, one of the biggest cheering spots in downtown Seoul, to support the Red Devils. Live music performances meant the atmosphere was festive before the match. The happy mood and optimism soon turned to disappointment, however, as Algeria stuck 3 goals past Korea in the first half.
Although Team Korea's first victory didn't come in the match against Algeria on this Monday morning, hopes are high that their win will come in their match against Belgium on Friday morning.
Today's game was a turning point to make it further in the tournament. I thank Son Heung-min and Kujachar for scoring a goal each. Although we lost today, I support our team and believe we can do well in our next match.
If we play like we did during the second half of this game, I think we have a good chance of beating Belgium on Friday.
The fans said the team's poor defending in the first half cost them in the end.
Our attacking play was pretty good, but we were vulnerable to counterattacks. You never know what can happen in football. I believe we can win against Belgium and qualify for the last 16.
On the day of the big match against Belgium on Friday, the cheers will be heard all the way to Brazil. Fans across the country refuse to give up hope that Korea can go at least one stage further in the World Cup. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Well, that wraps it up for Primetime Sports. This has been Stephen Che. I'll be back here later with more from the world of sports.
Well, the weather of late has been a mix of sunshine, rain, and storms, almost a little bit of everything.
Exactly. And our Kim Bo-kyung joins us from the Weather Center for more. Bo-kyung, it's been pretty erratic. What's going on?
Guys, all of this is because of instability in the atmosphere, which is leading to heavy downpours down south. On Tuesday, Gangwon-do and both Gyeongsang-do provinces are looking at about 5 to 40 millimeters of precipitation. With the exception of those regions, mostly sunny conditions are forecast for the week, but make sure to tune in for future weather updates. At the moment, a heavy rainfall warning has been issued for Gyeonggi-do, Jeollanam-do, and Gyeongsang-nam-do provinces. Shifting to World Cup weather, Korea's next match is at 5 a.m. on Friday Korea time against Belgium in Sao Paulo. Tomorrow's daytime highs there will hit 21 degrees with stormy conditions. Back here in the country, sporadic showers should continue through later tonight, which could be accompanied by strong winds and possibly hail in some areas. Otherwise, monsoon season in most regions is set to begin in July. On to Tuesday's readings. Seoul, Daegu, and Gwangju will hit the high 20s, while Busan peaks at 25. On to other regions. Jeju also reaches 25. Dokdo and Mount Kumgang make it to 20 and 23. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Bo-kyung. And that wraps up this edition of Primetime News.
Thanks for watching and have a great night. We'll see you soon.